If the Vancouver Canucks are looking for a first-round pick plus in exchange for Kiefer Sherwood, I sure wouldn't be making that trade.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, the daily show where we discuss all things Spoke to Be. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. On today's episode, we are going to discuss the rumblings rising about Boston's interest in Kiefer Sherwood of the Vancouver Canucks, the reported cost, and I'm staying away from it. Maybe Connor Garland might be a bit more attractive. We'll break it all down coming up. We'll also discuss Boston losing to the Rangers on Black Friday, followed up by a very strong effort on Saturday against the Detroit Red Wings, in which Morgan Geeky and Jeremy Swayman both shone brightly. We'll take a look also at the week ahead, which will begin with what will likely be a very spirited rematch between the Bruins and the Red Wings. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Before we get into it, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on socials at Locked NHL Bruins. That's on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, even TikTok. Please do subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube if you have not done so already. Again, my name is Ian McLaren. I'm a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for exactly 20 years, because it was yesterday that the Joe Thornton trade broke, and that was my first entrance into the Boston Bruins blogiverse. Today, I'm talking about some other trade possibilities, and the Bruins are reportedly expressing interest in a couple Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks are seemingly already in sell mode, and the belief is they are dangling Kiefer Sherwood on the trade market after a very strong start to the season. Sherwood, so far in 2025-2026 season, has 12 goals, 4 assists for 16 points in 26 games, and he's coming off a year in which he recorded 19 goals, 21 assists for 40 points last season for the Canucks. Now, Sherwood is 30 years old. He was undrafted, and he began his career with the Anaheim Ducks organization, working his way up through the San Diego Gulls. Then he played for the Colorado Eagles. He was in the Nashville Predators system as well. Played 68 games a couple seasons ago, 10 goals, 17 assists for 27 points with Nashville. Moved over to Vancouver, and he's been very successful since. The problem is the Canucks are reportedly looking for a first-round pick plus in exchange for Sherwood, who, again, I repeat, he's already 30 years old, and his career high last year was 19 goals, 21 assists for 40 total points. He's on track for a better year this year, averaging 0.62 points per game. He's already got 12 goals in 26 games compared to 19 in 78 games last season. He's averaging almost 3 minutes of ice time more per game. His shooting percentage is also up from 13.5 last season to 24% this season. Right now, he is on a second year of a 2-year contract worth $1.5 million, and he's an unrestricted free agent at season's end. So, not only are you going to have to give up some big-time assets for him, but you are also going to have to cough up on his next contract, which will be somewhat inflated based on a couple years of success at the NHL level. He's already 30. I repeat, he's already 30, and you're going to be potentially committing at least a Morgan Geeky contract to this guy for the foreseeable future. Now, he's not shooting as prolifically as Geeky is now, and Geeky's current contract looks like a massive steal, but he's going to be getting a big-time raise, Kiefer Sherwood is, based on a limited track record and a very inflated shooting percentage. Now, Morgan Geeky has been able to sustain that and exceed his production from last year, and they didn't have to give up anything to get him. He was allowed to walk as an unrestricted free agent by the Seattle Kraken to the Bruins' benefit. Here, you'd be giving up a first-round pick and perhaps a prospect to snag Kiefer Sherwood. Now, he would look good on the second line behind David Pastrnak. Right now, that spot will be occupied by Victor Arvidsson. He's probably not a long-term solution. But the reality is, I'm not trading a first-round pick and perhaps a prospect for a guy who's already 30, who you're going to have to re-sign this upcoming season or this upcoming summer. Now, Connor Garland may be a bit of a different story. He's still 29, but he's a bit younger. He's got more of a proven track record at the NHL level. He's averaging 0.71 points per game this season, 6 goals, 9 assists, 15 points in 21 games. He's hit 50 points a couple times in his career. He's hit 20 goals once, 19 goals twice. Just more of an established track record for this guy. Plus, of course, we all know that he is a Mass native. The key with him is that he already has signed a contract extension. 6 years, $6 million he will be owed beginning in 2026-27. So if you're going for Connor Garland, you're already getting that kind of, what do you call it? That solid guy that's going to be around for a while. Like, it's not as if you're trading for a guy who needs to be re-signed this season. He's already got that security of a new contract. You can argue whether $6 million is too much for a guy like Connor Garland. That will be about 5.8% against the cap beginning next year. He would be obviously paid higher than Morgan Geeky, who is proving to be more prolific this season. That would make him, right now, the Bruins' third highest paid forward behind David Pastrnak and Elias Lindholm. It's a commitment for sure, but you kind of know what you're going to get from Connor Garland, and perhaps you could get him for less because you're taking that contract off their hands, whereas Sherwood may be a bit of a rental or an overpay. You're getting more security in knowing what Connor Garland is, what he's all about. Plus, he's a local guy, so that's a bit of a bonus, and that's attractive to Don Sweeney as well. So for me, if you have to give up a first-round pick plus for a less proven guy and who you're going to have to perhaps give a relatively unfortunate contract to this summer that may not age well, at least with Garland, you know what you're going to get. And he has more of a proven track record. He can slot in on the right side behind David Pastrnak or even on the third line if need be, although the third line right now for the Bruins is looking pretty good with Tanner Jeannot, Fraser Minton, Mark Kastelic. And that kind of raises the question of where Matt Poitras' long-term standing is with this team. Minton seemingly has a lock on the third line center spot. You've got Elias Lindholm up there. You've got Casey Middlestat, Pavel Zacha on the second line. Could Poitras be used in a trade? Could Fabian Lysell be sent to Vancouver? That's where he played. junior hockey, so he knows the city. He's been on fire lately, hasn't been able to earn a recall. If a first-round pick has to be sent out, maybe a former first-round pick instead of futures, because the Bruins have 5 first-round picks in the next 3 years. And for me, I would not be using one of those to in a trade for a guy like Kiefer Sherwood. Anyways, that's my take on that. Let me know what you think in the YouTube comments or on socials. Coming up, we're going to take a look back at the weekend that was. Rough game against the Rangers, but a nice bounce back against the Detroit Red Wings, as well as take a look at what's coming up this week in Bruins action, beginning with a rematch tomorrow in Detroit. All that's coming up here on Locked On Boston Bruins. Have you ever noticed that when you're hydrated, everything just seems to work better? Focus, energy, mood, even your skin. That's why more have been using Drip Drop. It's a doctor-developed hydration system that keeps people running at full power no matter what your day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands with a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKDOWNNHL. Look, hydration has become a non-negotiable, and Drip Drop can help you feel sharper, calmer, and just better overall. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKDOWNNHL for 20% off. Stock up now before the holidays hit hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. Thank you so much again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. So the Bruins on Friday had a pretty sleepy-looking effort against the New York Rangers, and they lost by a score of 6-2. Now, the Bruins were playing without David Pastrnak, Pavel Zacha, and Matej Blumel. Pastrnak and Zacha were dealing with day-to-day injuries. Blumel was actually placed on long-term injured reserve. Georgi Merkulov was recalled for that one. And Casey Mittelstadt was able to make his return as well. So all that added up together, and Joonas Korpisalo in net, it added up to a pretty lopsided loss. Now, no disrespect to Korpisalo, not all the goals were on him, but it's increasingly being clear that he is not a fully viable option in net for the Boston Bruins. Jeremy Swayman has proven that he is up to the task on more than a 10 basis, and he should be starting at least 2 out of every 3 games. Now, Mittelstadt did get the Bruins on the board in the third period, but at that point, it was 4-1, and while the Bruins were able to pull within 2 with Morgan Geeky's 18th goal of the year, it just was not enough. Just a pretty poor effort overall for the Boston Bruins. Now, they did play the next day, being Saturday, and Jeremy Swayman back in net. Just an unreal performance for this guy. He finished with 24 saves. The Bruins won in a shootout, and again, they were undermanned. Pavel Zacha was able to make his return to the lineup, but David Pastrnak remained out with that day-to-day injury. Hopefully, he's able to come back and play on Tuesday, because anytime Pasternak's out of the lineup, obviously the Bruins are worse off for it. But this game was all about Jeremy Swayman. He says he's got his confidence back, knowing he's going to be square to the shot. Wherever the puck goes, he knows he can get in front of it. So that confidence is huge, and it gives the other team a boost as well. Morgan Geeky scored 2 goals in that one. 19th, 20th of the season, remains level with Nathan MacKinnon for tops in the NHL, and he credited his centerman on this team. He said both goals don't happen without Lindholm in the first one, Casey Middlestat on the second, trying to be in the right spots for those guys to see him, and good things happen. Lately, they've been finding me. This guy's got the hardest shot in the NHL right now, and anytime he gets the puck, it's a dangerous situation for the opposition. He almost had the hat trick on a breakaway opportunity. Maybe should have kept the puck and just shot towards the net instead of deferring to Alex Steves with the net empty for the Detroit Red Wings, because they did come back and score the tying goal with the extra man out there. But they were able to make some big penalty kills, especially one in overtime. They got an injection of energy from a slobber knocker of a fight from Mark Kastelik going up against Mo Sider. He is a bad man. There were some big hits in this one, and it did get a little crispy, which hopefully will carry over to tomorrow night's game in Detroit, because that's the beauty of these home and homes against the division team. You get that heat ratcheted up, and it's just more fun to watch. But for me, the big story was Jeremy Swayman. Coming off a big loss, they needed to rebound quickly, and afterwards he said he knew it was going to be a big momentum win for them, staying with that one shot at a time mentality, focusing on the breakaway at hand. He said he's just excited to be part of it. Couldn't be happier to be a Bruin. Couldn't be happier to be part of this team, playing in this league. The gratitude really overwhelms him. He likes to play with that gratitude and happiness, and when you do, good things happen. And Marco Sturm echoed that afterwards, saying everybody feels it when he's playing at his best. The fans, the players, the media, everyone upstairs in the front office, and most importantly, the players feel it. Such a good feeling when you have that, and all year long, since day one that Sturm met him, he's been rock solid off and off the ice. And Swayman, he didn't get off to the best start this season, which was a bit concerning because of his down year last year. But in the month of November, this guy was unbelievable. If you look at October, he started 7 games. He was 3-4 with an .886 save percentage. And we're thinking, are we going to be experiencing a repeat of last year? He did start strong with performances against the Capitals and Sabres to begin the season, but things seemed to bottom out once again when he allowed 7 goals in a loss to the Ottawa Senators on October 27th. Since then, he has played 10 games. He has won 8 of them, 8-2 in the month of November, a .935 save percentage. And he's raised his season save percentage to .915, which is above his career average. A lot of that elevated save percentage, of course, came last season for a variety of reasons. He bottomed out. There was the contract stalemate, not playing in training camp and exhibition. The team in front of him kind of fell apart and deteriorated as the season went on. They are harder to play against, which is what they want it to be. Look, if you're missing Charlie McAvoy, who's still out with that face injury, and David Pastrnak, your next best players have to step up. Jeremy Swayman is the other core in that triumvirate for the Bruins. Morgan Geeky is becoming a core player, maybe in that square for the Bruins, a 4-headed, true core, can't be without players. He had the 2 goals, Swayman with the huge saves, and that's what it takes to win in this league. Elias Lindholm, Casey Middlestat chipping in with big assists, and the Bruins did everything they could to win in regulation. They did allow Detroit to pick up a point, which was a factor in the playoff standings. Pavel Zacha did return, which was huge. There were some other lineup changes made over the weekend, including Merkulov being sent to Providence, a recall on the blue line. We'll take a look at where the roster stands right now, as well as what's coming up this week for the Bruins here as the podcast continues. NFL Sundays move pretty fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. And with FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, the defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player prop updates as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, and every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets every Thursday, Sunday, and Monday. FanDuel is where the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, with that win the other night against the Detroit Red Wings, the Boston Bruins solidified themselves as a playoff team-ish in terms of the overall standings. Right now, you look at the Atlantic Division, the Bruins have 30 points, a record of 15-12, which is the second highest point total behind only the red-hot Tampa Bay Lightning, who have won 7 games in a row, and they're 8-2 over their last 10 games. However, we always have to look at point percentage, and if you put that into effect, the Bruins are currently 4th in point percentage behind Tampa Bay, behind Montreal, even though they're struggling. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10, and the Ottawa Senators, who've lost 2 games in a row despite getting Brady Tkachuk back from injury. The Bruins are at 556, so they've played 27 games. That means 54 points have been available to them. They've only achieved 30 of them, which is a success rate of 55.6%. The Red Wings slightly behind. They're 2 points back, and they have a 538 point percentage. The Panthers, Maple Leafs in 6th and 7th, respectively, and then the Sabres in 8th with a 480 point percentage. Right now, only one team in the Atlantic has a positive goal differential. That's Tampa at plus 19. The Bruins are 3rd at -3. Kind of getting ahead of ourselves here. We'll update the power rankings tomorrow. But all that to say, if you look at the playoff picture, the Bruins, with picking up that extra point, put themselves with 30 points, which is 2nd in the Atlantic Division and is 6th highest in the Eastern Conference. If you look at point percentage, the Bruins fall outside of the top 8 right now. They would be like 10th behind, or slightly behind the New York Islanders, like literally 0.02%. 55.8 versus 55.6. So all that to say, it's incredibly tight. There's only one team in the entire conference below 500. That's the Buffalo Sabres. And the Metro Division is proving to be possibly worthy of 5 playoff spots. 5 teams over there who are at 600 or above in terms of point percentage. And right now, the wild card is occupied by two metropolitan teams, the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Meaning, if you want to make the playoffs as an Atlantic team, you might have to finish in the top three. And that makes division games even more important. The Bruins have a big one coming up tomorrow night against the Red Wings. That game got very physical on Saturday, a couple fights, some big hits, and you can bet the Red Wings will be looking to gain the upper hand back on home ice. Following that game, the Bruins have, I don't want to say a gimme, but a pretty good opportunity to pick up 2 points against their old friend Jim Montgomery and his St. Louis Blues. They've been pretty bad so far this season, and that's a game that if you want to be taken seriously in the Eastern Conference, you've got to pick that one up. Then they have a tougher one later on in the week when they will host the New Jersey Devils, who are very good despite being without Jack Hughes due to a freak injury where he cut his hand at a team dinner, which is reminiscent of David Pastrnak, breaking his thumb at a team dinner back in like 2019 or something. Next week's kind of slow. There's only 2 games on the schedule, St. Louis and Winnipeg. So that'll be a nice time to get a reset, hopefully get everybody healthy before a 4-game week coming up and 6 games in like 9 days heading into the holiday break. So that's what's coming up for the Bruins this week. Detroit on the road, St. Louis at home, New Jersey at home. Hopefully David Pastrnak is able to play in at least a couple of those games. Georgi Merkulov was sent back to Providence after playing 10 minutes for the Bruins. Does not appear as though he is going to be a factor for this team. Perhaps he is on the trade block or could be part of a deal that we discussed off the top. If they're looking at Vancouver, maybe Fabian Lysell, who hasn't been able to earn a call up despite some strong play recently. Maybe Matt Poitras in that mix. I would not be trading any first round picks unless it is a younger guy with way more upside and controllability. Connor Garland, maybe 20-goal scorer, 50-point guy would be a nice add on the second line behind David Pastrnak, especially if you're not going to be committing long-term to Victor Arvidsson at that spot. Will be a nice way to get ahead of free agency by adding a guy who's locked down for the next 6 seasons. There is the holiday trade freeze that will come into effect. So anything that happens, could happen within the next couple of weeks. If not, waiting until closer to the trade deadline. Henry Jokiharju was also placed on injured reserve. Mike Callahan was recalled. So the Bruins kind of thin on D right now with Jokiharju out, with Charlie McAvoy out. David Pastrnak is out. Victor Arvidsson remains out. Although with Merkulov being sent back, maybe that's an indication that Arvidsson can be good to go for tomorrow's game. We will update all the roster moves here on Locked On Boston Bruins. You're going to want to follow along on TikTok and Instagram for those instant reaction videos, breaking news, as well as the YouTube channel. Please do subscribe on your favorite podcast app if you have not done so already. Thank you again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. For your next listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night show. Every game, every night, until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. You can get local analysis on a national scale. Find it on the Locked On NHL YouTube channel or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Please take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.